Hello. Today is Tuesday, February 18th. Where has the month gone? And today we're talking about government and social media, which is a slightly depressing section. I don't know, social media is usually not that bad.
A lot of people hate it.
Well, but it's not like super depressing. It's just kind of like,
You say the month is almost gone, but do you know that this year we get an extra February day?
Great.
It's a leap.
Oh, it's also an unseasonably warm winter, according to weather.com, which has great clickbait.
That seems like a dire combination. Perhaps it'll bring forth some sort of pandemic.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
But let's not talk about China's woes right now. Actually, let's talk about them because they're down. And what do you do when your enemy is down? You kick them in the groin. And that is what the U.S. is doing. Now, all along, when we talked about Huawei, China's been saying, bring the charges, bro. Tell us what we've done.
Do it,
you got nothing. And the U.S. said, you know what? We think we got something.
The U.S. is charging Huawei with racketeering. That's the headline. The rest of the article is actually kind of interesting. Apparently, Huawei's California offices had a bonus program for employees that stole technology from competitors.
Yeah, they point out a lot of, not just that, but, well, in that, it's all under that umbrella, but they were going to trade shows and like hiding till they turned the lights off and then taking pictures of the boards and just all kinds of crazy stuff. Allegedly. Who knows?
Is that not how one runs a global multinational company?
Well, it worked, didn't it? It's funny. The guy they caught at the trade show, I think he was taking a picture of some of Cisco's networking, utilities, just popping the top off and taking pictures. They caught him. His card was fake, but the company that said he worked for was Huawei. Brilliant disguise.
I didn't put that together.
I saw a Twitter thing the other day. It was a documentary on YouTube about some lady. And then I was like, oh, I hope she's doing better. So I checked her Twitter because someone had posted it, of course, in the comment. And it said that she was an IP lawyer in China. And I was like, is that even, like, do they...
Is that a thing?
Yeah, like, do they care about IP in China?
Well,
I didn't think so.
Maybe it's defense.
Maybe,
so all those international cases
I don't know.
that are coming against you. So the fear is, if you're new to the Huawei situation, the fear is Huawei is in league with the Chinese government, the Communist Party. And if they sell us equipment, it's going to have little bugs in it that tweet back to the Communist Party.
Bugs.
And that would be a terrible thing. That's unacceptable. I mean, what kind of country would use a technology arm to just spy on everybody? That is the lowest form of behavior that you could do.
Oh, wait. How the CIA used crypto AG encryption devices to spy on countries for decades. So apparently the CIA owned this Swiss company, Crypto AG, and they made two different versions of their equipment with and without the CIA backdoor, and you didn't get to choose which one you got. You know who got the equipment that didn't have the CIA backdoor? The U.S. and Israel, and that's it.
Yeah. Now, you know who was smart enough not to buy that equipment? China and Russia. So maybe there is some sense to what we're doing with Huawei. I mean, of course, maybe just some projecting there. Like, of course they'll do it. We'll do it.
Damn it, Pot, you're the blackest black I've ever seen.
We're also guilty.
Now, with the advent of the internet and modern cryptography, this went away. It wasn't used for a while, but for a long time.
Yeah.
These were the machines that governments used to encode their communications with each other. And we were just listening to everything.
And
Does that surprise anyone, though?
Like, I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't surprise us, but at the same time, there are a lot of people that have historically said, no, you guys are tinfoil hat. You're sort of, sideways looking here. This is a level of paranoia that's not, I mean, it's
completely justified.
Yeah, yeah. And so it turns out that, yeah. And so when we talk right now today, the thing that we're talking about is the random number generator in your CPU compromised? And everybody's like, oh, that's silly. How would we ever be able to do that? Blah, 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 blah. But you look at the type of compromise that was in, like the specific way that the machines were compromised. They weren't completely broken. They were just tweaked to make it slightly easier to crack them, which is exactly the same thing that happened with the OPM hack, the elliptic curve RSA encryption, and is probably exactly the same type of thing that is planted in modern hardware and random number generators. So I think China was right to do their own random number generator in their version of our CPUs.
And we're probably right to exclude Huawei in the same vein. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no moral high ground here, but we have to accept the reality
Yeah.
that, it's a dark,
We're all here in the
dark
swamp
world.
together.
Yeah, exactly.
Is the War Games quote appropriate? It's like the only winning move, Dr. Falcon, is not to play.
No, I think you got to play.
You have to play, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what about open source? Like, can we shoehorn open source in here somehow?
Yeah, but then, see that, like, because we're the melting pot, it's easy for them to infiltrate us versus the opposite. So you have to spy on your own citizens as well. Really, the U.S. has a great burden to spy. But the thing about that Washington Post article is the tone of it was kind of like, wow, good job, CIA.
Yeah.
Really impressed us with this, and not.
I didn't read the WAPO version of the
Can't
article.
believe. Well, it's a little sad.
Yeah.
But the U.S. and China are for sure engaged in this, Cold War of espionage and IP theft and all that, and they just keep trading blows.
The FBI is investigating more than 1,000 cases of Chinese theft of U.S. technology. U.S. officials talked about the methods the Chinese government and its agents have been using to target U.S. companies and universities to steal intellectual property. Huh.
IP lawyer.
Information wants to be free. That's not. I don't actually believe that. But
Well, this is not shocking. I mean, we've done a lot of stories about this, and this is an investigation. Again, this is alleged, but it's not hard to believe. But I also assume that we're doing everything we can. The thing about the U.S., the melting pot gives us that, and capitalism. Listen, we're talking about President Sanders and his free healthcare for all. But when a foreign leader gets really, really sick, do you know what they do? They come to the U.S. because capitalism leaves a lot of people out, but it creates the best, and you want to steal the best, right?
Can the rest of us have at least better leftovers? I mean, I'm starting to get really sick from this
Please,
gangrenous.
sir, can I have some more?
Yeah, well,
More flu shots?
the slider could be nudged a little bit to the others.
Just a little though. I mean, we don't want those not giant companies to lose out on any profits.
Bernie wants to snap the right half off and set fire to it. So,
I don't think people should be paying $600 for diabetes medicine, but okay.
I
But
pay
if
that for
you-
insurance.
Yeah, me too.
Covers like nothing.
But if you're super rich and powerful,
don't
you
pay
want the best diabetes medicine.
This insulin was handcrafted by 300
Artisan-
Vietnamese children.
Artisan
Vietnamese
diabetes. Artisan.
It's sprinkled with
insulin.
Himalayan pink salt.
vegan insulin.
Well, again,
Anyway,
to continue on with the Chinese assault from the powers that be here in the U.S., we're actually going back and digging up old stuff. Remember those ancient times when we were talking about Equifax? Well, everybody was talking about how bad Equifax was, but we really didn't think about who was responsible for this. We didn't know, and maybe we do now.
The Justice Department charges 4 Chinese military hackers over the Equifax data breach. So they've got pictures, and they say this whole thing was orchestrated to gather information on American citizens, but it seems like in their wake they left it in such a state that the rest of the criminal internet would just wander in. Now, to be sure, I think ultimately the issue here is that Equifax didn't patch their crap. Somebody's going to have a much easier time finding a way in. I think Equifax is not blameless here, but at the same time, this is pretty typical.
Well, I think when it comes to exploiting patches, the people, and it was that advanced persistent threat team, which they're really living up to their name because they are persistent. They were the first who were looking. They found it. They attacked it. It worked. So good job, I guess. These people are obviously never coming to the U.S., so you can go after them all day long. It ain't going to matter. The Chinese government ain't going to extradite their best guys, assuming they're still alive.
the coronavirus hasn't gotten them.
Yeah. And so, hearkening back to Equifax, that was kind of the beginning of this whole new paradigm of, wait a minute, the plebs are aware that their information is just being traded, constantly, and it's out there and it's being leaked, and it's a terrible thing.
They're like cattle, a new digital version of cattle.
Yeah, it was the tipping point. Was it like the 100th monkey or whatever? And so since then, there's been all this talk, especially because it's an election cycle, about protecting your data. And we may have a new answer to that.
A new Senate bill would create a U.S. data protection agency. The article goes on to describe a really just overly optimistic future, but we envision something that's like Ajit Pai in charge of the FCC.
Yeah. Well, if it's an appointed leader, you would definitely get... Well, it depends on who the president is.
You're only allowed to make this much money from doing horrible things with people's private data. That's what this would do.
But it could also be a GDPR type of thing where if the economy turns down because of the coronavirus, you've always got a tap. You can always just draw yourself a fresh glass of money out of any of the tech companies because they're never going to fix this until you destroy it even further. But hey, that's the next person's problem, right? So interesting to see what will happen there. And when it comes to, we talk about capitalism, certainly the cheerleader, the figurehead of American capitalism is Jeff Bezos. He arguably wields more power than our political leaders. And when they snub him, he will not stand for it. And he has the ability to somewhat fight back.
Judge temporarily blocks Microsoft Pentagon cloud contract after the Amazon suit. This is the JEDI contract that we've covered before. And I got to say, I really like the way that the Amazon lawyers are handling this, because they're basically saying, look, the president's tweeted that he doesn't like Amazon, and we just want to know, do you guys have any emails from the president that's something along the lines of, hey, I don't like Amazon, don't award this contract to them? Because we sort of want that for the lawsuit. And the answer to that is going to be, yep, it exists. Whether or not it factored into the contract or not, it's going to be a whole other story. But their lawyers are going to get hold of that and have a field day.
They also want to depose Trump. They want him in the witness stand. So,
because he's going to totally be like, yep, I don't like him. And it's like, oh, no.
That will be interesting to see if he could control himself. Enough to do what the lawyers
know the answer to that.
Listen, I'm sure Mr. Bezos is great. He's fantastic. I love him. But I also hate him.
So, yeah. And it's ironic that the next story is from the Washington Post, because that's why Trump hates Bezos. Bezos owns the Washington Post, and the Washington Post doesn't like Trump. But the story is not about that. This story is more of the powers that be kind of, it seems like they're prepping. They see what the EU is doing with those delicious fines, and they say to themselves, "Oh, we need that." But they're like, "Well, but they're better now. They're not doing that anymore, and we've already lost our chance." And the FTC says, "But wait, why not just go back to their old stuff?"
The FTC will examine the history of Alphabet, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and Microsoft mergers. They're going to look at where these larger companies gobbled up smaller companies in quote-unquote mergers, what effects that had on the market and competition and so on and so forth, to see if these companies engaged in anti-competitive behavior. I can already tell you the answer is going to be, no, they totally did.
That's going to be real bad for Facebook.
Yeah.
I said they've gobbled up everything.
And it's all been super successful.
Yeah. I mean, they were literally buying apps algorithmically as a result of spying on users' internet traffic. I mean, how much more of a gift-wrapped case does the FTC need?
They need a bigger bribe to be able to care.
I mean, building a machine solely for spying on your enemies and overtaking them, that's un-American.
Probably also have a field day with Uber, because they did that fairly egregiously too. Perhaps not as egregiously as Facebook when you read about it, but pretty egregious.
Well, corporate espionage is certainly not a new thing. And, Facebook had maybe a novel approach that worked really well, but the more traditional, just go in and take pictures of stuff and steal it, the Huawei method, you could say, has been popular for years. And Apple is one of the most paranoid companies about that, because not only do they not want you to steal their technology, but even when something's going to come out, a new product launch, they get furious if people find out. So they have some draconian measures that turns out might be illegal.
Apple liable for millions in unpaid wages after court rules that retail worker bag checks are illegal. So yeah, you work for Apple and you would have to spend 20, 30 minutes while they check your bags, go through your phone, make sure that you don't have something that you shouldn't have. Well, I mean, that's fine, according to the judge, but you have to be paid for the time that's displaced.
Do you remember in that episode of Arrested Development where Lucille did that with her housekeeper and it was played for a laugh? And now it's like, oh, that's just considered normal behavior now.
That's Apple. Yeah, that is kind of funny.
So that's 30 minutes a day for nearly everybody in the company for years of back pay.
Yeah, I don't imagine they do it with some of the workers, but yeah, this article says they're liable for millions. I gotta imagine that Apple just doesn't care. Like there probably will be like a web form that you fill out, and it's like, what's your employee number, and we'll just pull your.
Have you been personally victimized by Apple?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Sign up for this web form.
But going forward, now are you going to keep doing that?
I think that they'll be on the clock. I mean, the cost here is trivial.
I bet it'll go a lot faster now.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's an incentive for it to go faster, certainly.
The other interesting thing about this court case is that Apple didn't want people having their iPhones with them during the day while they worked because it would distract you and you could take pictures. You know, got these nice cameras in those iPhones. They've been telling us that for years, right? So they argued that having your iPhone or any phone with you during the day was not something that a person needs. Meanwhile, the advertising arm of Apple was trying to convince everybody you can't live without this. So it's
I want you to check your phone on your 15-minute break, and at lunch, and at your bathroom break, and another break.
Bathroom break.
Christy, you are so out of touch with using your phone in the bathroom.
No, I'm implying that the people who work at Apple don't get bathroom breaks.
Well, it's not Amazon.
That's like they put that on like the employment form at the top. We're not Amazon. With like a smiley face.
I think they let them go to the bathroom.
Well, listen, it's I mean, going to the bathroom is a choice. In the same way that you don't have to bring your phone, you don't have to eat solid food. You could just have Soylent, and then you don't have to go to the bathroom nearly as much.
What if they started doing the bag checks in the bathroom? That could kill two birds.
Look at some of these old used airport X-ray machines. Just step through the nude scanner, and it's going to upload it directly to Twitter.
Does Soylent, like, I knew someone who was on Soylent for a while. We all did. And, I wasn't close enough with him to ask, but, like, how does that affect your gut?
It's just a liquid.
But it's
got everything the body needs.
I mean, there's probably an adjustment period where things might get weird. But
I'm
sure, you probably get used to it after a while.
Probably like a cleanse.
Engagement challenge.
I should just email that guy. It's been like years since I've talked to him and be like, hey, this is a weird question.
Wasn't it on a very old episode of the Level 1 News that we came up with the take a picture of my poop website? Like that was a thing.
Oh, that pre-existed.
Yeah. And
I think
ours was going to be an app and it was going to have some extra feature, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's that rating system.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the name of it is.
Yeah, we could do it with like
I think it was AI.
A two-dimensional, like,
I think we're going to try to do an AI, a machine learning system that, had a data set and learned and could rate your poop.
I've got a magic quadrant of poop, and it's like, we're trending in the right direction now.
Looks like you're eating too much Soylent. Are you an Apple worker?
We could sell that data to Google. Well, T-Mobile and Sprint have been trying to merge so hard, but these pesky state lawsuits just keep getting in the way. And finally, pretty much thanks to one man, we may have an answer.
Court is going to let T-Mobile and Sprint merge because Sprint completely sucks. Judge Victor Marrero, I think that's how you say his name, thinks John Laguerre is just the coolest. It literally sat down, looked at this, and was like, guys, this is all super boring. Sprint sucks. T-Mobile's fine. T-Mobile's going to take over Sprint. Let's do it. That was the ruling.
And you can read in the Verge article here, I think they've got the entire ruling at the bottom. If not, they've excerpted the good parts. Oh, no, they don't. But, they've got all these excerpts, and this guy really is writing. I mean, it's in that legal speak, but it just sounds like, this bro speak about, we could measure all these market, influences. We could look at all this data and we could have experts come in here, but man, that's a drag. I'm just going to let this happen.
Neat. That's the Ajit Pai way of running things.
You think?
Yeah, I say he's going to be upgraded. He's going to.
Well, you think
better
like
appointment.
Ajit Pai, there might have been some duffel bags of cash.
We will add his name to the list, and we will be notified when his career changes. And if he goes to work for the telecom industry, we'll know what happened.
He's got a bright future. Well, we had the big impeachment, and it amounted to nothing. God, what a waste of time and resources that was, huh? And but some interesting things. I think the political divide was, it was chipped away a few feet deeper during that process, for sure. That's all we did. And a lot of stuff was done just, as a show of a drama. We had Pelosi ripping up the State of the Union right after.
Which was highly effective.
And we had Rand Paul, who made everyone in the left furious when he said the forbidden name. And it's so forbidden that you're still not allowed to hear it, even though it happened during the impeachment.
YouTube removes the video of Rand Paul reading alleged whistleblower's name on the Senate floor. So this is after the justice that was presiding over the thing declined to read his question, which included the alleged whistleblower's name. And I don't know. It doesn't seem like reading the name under any circumstances should be a thing. Not because of a whistleblower or partisanship or anything, but just because people tend to retaliate. Like, you can't not retaliate. Like, these people have no self-control.
But it does create kind of it's like the whole rape thing, right? Like, rape is such a serious thing that we always take it seriously. But we know there are false rape claims. So, do you create carte blanche to blow the whistle even when it's fake?
Mm. Mm.
The name's out there. I can't even remember what it is. I won't say it because we'll get demonetized. But everybody knows who it is at this point. And
the people who would retaliate certainly know.
It's kind of a charade that we're not saying it. But I guess maybe this is like to protect future whistleblowers and give them some false sense of confidence. I don't know. But it's interesting that there's a name out there that is just totally memory hold, except ineffectively.
What's like Voldemort's name?
But you just said it.
Well, yeah, because I don't care about it. I'm not a wizard. But they all said, what was it? He who must not be named or something like that. That's how they refer to him in the book. But it's all capitalized. Or you know who.
Meh.
Can we dial down the Harry Potter references, please?
Listen. It's been a long time since I've read those books.
Well, you know who had plenty of time to read those books was the gentleman in this story. 4 years to be or 18 months, I'm sorry. 18 months to be exact, because he's been in jail. Now, he was accused of child pornography, and unfortunately, it seems like they've got a really, really good case. But that's not why he was in jail.
Man who refused to decrypt hard drives is free after 4 years in jail. So it took 4 years, but he finally got through the court system, and they said, well, you can only hold him in contempt for 18 months. So he's in contempt for not providing the password to decrypt his hard drives. Now, this case is like he's going away for a long time. It's very likely because there's a lot of other evidence. But I have to wonder about the prosecutor that didn't proceed with the case without the evidence, because they said that there was a lot of evidence, and it certainly seems like there's a lot of evidence in the in what has happened so far. And so it seems like a foregone conclusion that they didn't really need the hard drives, which means that they kept him in jail on the contempt charge just to get him to decrypt the hard drive so they'd have some case law history for that. And that's not okay ethically. Like, I don't think it's okay for a prosecutor to do that.
The judge is the one who assigns the contempt charge. So the prosecutor might not have a choice.
Well, I think the prosecutor would be like, this isn't working, let's just proceed with whatever. They could have proceeded in parallel.
But also, every day he's in jail, you're probably more likely to get a plea out of him.
Maybe.
Don't have to do any work.
The judge...
I just don't want to do any paperwork. So just do this.
The judge that freed him did say that whenever the other part goes to trial, consider the fact that he's already spent 4 years in jail.
Yeah, they'll consider that.
Shouldn't there be a lot of years behind those charges, though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently there was
a lot of stuff.
A family victim.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be just throw away the key type situation.
It is terrible that this type of case is politicized, I guess, is the TLDR for that.
Yeah, you really can't defend it,
Yeah.
even though the next person might be innocent and get the same treatment.
Yeah.
And then we have this to look back at, which is kind of poisons the well. But what can you do? It's a terrible world. And part of the terrible world is huge risks of, societal collapse, maybe from contagion, maybe from something else. What about the EMP, the asteroid? There's apparently some like mega asteroid that might be coming in 2029, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's 2025.
Neat.
That's something cool to think about for the next decade. But what if just the GPS went out? We'd be a little bit screwed. And so what? The golden god, he's going to do something about it.
Trump signs an order to test the U.S. infrastructure's vulnerability to GPS outage by creating a GPS outage. So,
Didn't they just do this for a military exercise?
I think it was in a limited area.
Yeah, but
Can't you just go to Eastern Kentucky and like simulate this? Because
It's a mountainous region. You can't see the satellites. This is kind of a follow-up to the story about Russia apparently can not just jam GPS, but actually send fake GPS signals because they think that GPS is used by some U.S. military like targeting stuff. So whenever there's that Russian ship that's doing stuff with the undersea fiber optic cables, and its transponder just goes all kinds of haywire, and then it shows up at port and everything is fine, and then as soon as it gets out of port, its GPS goes haywire again, which is a technical capability I guess the general public was not aware of until recently. So this is like, well, we better test this because maybe there's a way to take it out.
sounds like we're going to need new satellites. It's bullish for SpaceX. Well, we talked about the Iowa caucus, and boy, was that a mess. There was definitely some insider, jobs granted there, contracts given, poor work done, no dry run. It was just everything that could go wrong went wrong. So the states that are coming up for their caucuses, they're like, you know what? We're not going to fall for that. We're going to go with the tried and true. We don't want anybody meddling with our election. So they partnered with two of the companies that are most likely to meddle with the election.
Nevada Democrats use iPads loaded with Google Forms to track caucus, and yet somehow it was less of a disaster than the Iowa caucuses.
Now, they're still going to do the paper ballots, but
But they phone it in. So like
Yeah.
they fill it out and then they phone it in to verify. And it's paper on the other end of the phone, but I don't think the paper really moves around much.
no, I think they're going to do like paper on both ends plus this,
Oh, okay.
and then compare the two
Yeah.
at the end. So,
It's still better than what happened in Iowa.
but Google now has total vision of the caucusing system.
Surely they wouldn't abuse their access.
never.
We'll see. Well, the cryptocurrencies just took a nosedive yesterday. And I was like, wow, I wonder what's going on. I think it was this. I think some dark web traders were like, ooh, maybe I can't use my Bitcoin the way that I hoped I could previously. Better liquidate it.
Ohio man arrested for running Bitcoin mixing service that laundered $300 million. Well, about $300 million. Or $3.5 billion at the time. So this is a Bitcoin mixer. Some of the other mixers had already shut down, but this mixer advertised as like, hey, are you doing criminal things on the internet? We can mix your Bitcoins. It's like, pro tip, you can't advertise that. You can't talk about that because in that kind of intent makes you an accessory.
And he also had other services, one of which aggregated all of the like drug sales on the dark web and was like a deal finder. It was like, put in what you're looking for and I'll find you the best dark web marketplace where you can get the best price for the highest rating. And then I'll mix your coins and everything will be fine. So he definitely flew too close to the sun there. And so what this is probably going to do is it's going to make any kind of Bitcoin mixing illegal.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate.
It also means that Bitcoin is far less anonymous than people realize. And there's probably already technology to link up credit card transactions and individual user information to the actual Bitcoins. Like, is there any doubt in your mind that, services where you can buy Bitcoin don't turn over those transactional records to law enforcement already, preemptively? Seems likely.
It's going to make those freshly mined coins really valuable. So, yeah, and if they got that guy's servers, who knows if there's logs that show all the mixing so you can trace back. Bad news for dark web users. Well, we talked about the online delivery services who were listing restaurants who didn't want to be listed. There was the Michelin star restaurant, which didn't do takeout or delivery, but you could order online.
And it came from some guy's kitchen.
And
It's terrifying.
so a lot of restaurants are like, hey, come on, seriously, this has to be illegal. And California says, well, it's not, but we're going to make it.
California introduces law to stop delivery apps screwing over restaurants. That's what they're talking about when they say screwing over restaurants. If you don't actually go to the restaurant, you can just have somebody else make the restaurant's menu or something that's an approximation of the restaurant's menu. And who would know? It's a victimless crime. Oh, wait.
Yeah, and they're also doing some of those like worker protection laws for the gig workers, more of that. I thought California already had that, but maybe not for the delivery drivers. I don't know. Anyway, it's probably going to get more expensive to get your delivery stuff in California. Congratulations. But if you're a restaurant owner, you're probably happy about that. Well, it was Valentine's Day, and if you were in Europe and you desperately needed to find love before the big day because somehow that's some sort of societal measuring stick, you may have been planning to go to Facebook, which was going to launch the day before. What a great day to launch, right? But it turns out they didn't check with anybody.
Facebook dating app launch blocked in Europe after it fails to show privacy workings. Yeah, Europe, GDPR. How is this not going to spy on me, Mark Zuckerberg? We'll get back to you. And then it just didn't launch in Europe.
Whoops.
Zuckerberg's response was interesting, because he was like, you know what, we really don't need their permission to launch, but just out of respect, we're going to not.
Getting a little tired of these $1 million bee stings. The privacy violations, it's like $1 million here and $1 million there. It really adds up after a while.
Well, you say million. What a great lead in, because the EU has been sort of bee stinging all the big tech companies, but now they've gone from bee stinging to perhaps a small caliber handgun when it comes to Google, who is not too happy about it.
Google protests the eye-catching $2.6 billion EU fine, and the judge disagrees. So Google is complaining about a previous ruling where it basically amounts to a $2.6 billion fine. And the judge has said, we can look at this, but $2.6 billion might not have been enough. And that would be the second case only in EU history where the fine was actually revised upward after the company complained, but the threat of it is on the table.
It's like when you were a kid and your parents made you go cut the switch that they were going to beat you with.
Oh, yeah.
But if it was too small,
Go cut me a
you had to
switch.
do a different one, a bigger one. So you really had to weigh your options there.
Well, see, but the smaller switch hurt more, I thought.
You did learn that after a while.
Yeah.
There were workarounds. Younger kids are going to be like, what kind of barbarism is that? We turned out fine.
Did we though?
Not really.
No. But I think today's kids are turning out also weird
Yeah.
in a different way.
Yeah, they're
It's just
probably-
a different way.
They're more annoying.
There are enough people like us, as evidenced by Floatplane and Patreon and the people watching, that it's probably fine.
Go on and shake the mug there. Please, sir.
There's screws in
Subscribe
there.
to our
Oh,
Patreon.
no. Oh, now it doesn't make noise.
Well, now we have no coins, so we need your subscriptions more than ever.
We do have our Teaching Sand to Think was a mistake shirt in the store
yeah,
at this
it's up.
point.
So you can order.
Thank you. A lot of people have ordered it, like 100, which is a lot.
Which we might have to reprint because we didn't order that many, because usually we don't sell that many shirts at once.
We did. They don't ship until February 20th, so there's time to revise upward. Or
Okay.
28th. They don't ship till the 28th. So
Well, speaking
Anyway.
of Linux
Anyway.
nerds with poor social and acceptability, that's not the word I was going for, but anyway, losers. There may be a lot
People like
more
us.
of those people in South Korea, thanks to the government.
South Korea's government explorers move from Windows to Linux desktop. They're on Windows 7. The problem here is they're on Windows 7.
Ouch.
And it's going to be prohibitively expensive to continue using Windows 7 and also to upgrade to Windows 10. But you know what's looking better every day? Linux.
Now, the South Korean government has an amazingly effective security policy, and I don't think we do this. We should. They have one computer which is air-gapped, and that's for the sensitive stuff, and then they have one that gets on the internet. And so they're going to go with Linux on the internet, and they're going to stick with Windows 7 for the air-gapped one until they go to Windows 10, and then Linux is going to be a virtual container on the Windows 10 machine. And again, Windows 10 will never touch the internet. Good policy. I don't know why they would need Windows 10 at that point.
Just
Word,
legacy,
Solitaire.
legacy applications. I really think Microsoft intentionally breaks Office under Wine because it's mostly okay. And then there's an update and then it's not okay.
And you know who else in Korea is probably using a lot of Linux? Maybe some Kali Linux. Their neighbors to the north. They've been doing. They're the joke is they're not on the internet because they don't have electricity, but the government does. And oh boy, they've been using it.
The North has evaded America's maximum pressure, quote-unquote, campaign with a 300% increase in the internet use that has opened up new opportunities for cybercrime. So they're just anything that they can do to make money on the internet, they're doing. I mean, there's probably a room full of people that are doing like Amazon's Mechanical Turk, all the way up to the most advanced ransomware we've ever seen, because that's an easy way to make
I was
money.
thinking like North Korean influencer making money on the internet.
Selling Beanie Babies on eBay. Selling nudes.
Did you see? I don't know how real this was. There was a picture of like a bus in North Korea, and they're like, "This is how it always looks," and there were just people in hazmat suits like disinfecting it, and it's like.
So the report is they had some infections, and one of the guys escaped quarantine, and they just shot him.
Wow.
Whoa.
They don't mess around in the People's Republic. Avast. We talked about Avast, and they made a bit of a faux pas.
Me hearties.
They were looking at your browsing, and
Selling it.
they were saying that they were protecting you by looking at your browsing, but they were selling it. They might have also been protecting you, but by default, if they're the risk, So that is a Czech company, and that government is not too happy.
Data Protection Authority investigates Avast for selling users' browsing history. This will be one to watch. It'll be interesting to see what their conclusion is as to how innocent this selling users' browsing history actually was. Because Avast still maintains that this is fairly innocent, even though, perhaps they shouldn't have done this. But if the Data Protection Authority looks at this and decides that it's a smoking gun, then we'll have our answer.
How about the fact that they have a data protection authority and we're just thinking about getting one?
What we're getting is not going to be effective.
Well, we don't know that theirs is either, but I mean, it's doing something, right?
GDPR is as much. It's only aligned with the interests of the people because it is a monetary vehicle for the government implementing it.
Well, moving on. Actually, I don't know if this counts as government or social media. It's a good transition, right? Because it's both, kind of both. Myanmar.
I think it's Myanmar, but I actually don't know.
We talk a lot about Myanmar, like not a lot, but often enough that my inability to pronounce it comes up a lot.
Yeah,
which is weird.
We should really just look it up so we don't look so dumb every time.
But anyway, Myanmar is not a Christian nation. They are, I don't remember, but they've got some Christians, and their Christians speak their own language and have like their own little, world, and they're really kind of paranoid because they're not tolerated. And when this happened on Facebook, it really worried them.
Facebook accidentally blacked out an entire language. An apparent glitch has spread fear through Myanmar's Kachin minority. So this is an ethnic minority, and Facebook is translated into many languages, including that one.
Jingpo.
And they it didn't work anymore in that language for a little while because of a glitch.
You'd think that, like, as soon as they discovered it, they would have made like a note, like, hey, I guess you can't read it if it's not translated, so never mind.
Yeah. It probably took a little while because this is such a minority.
Yeah,
for
to find
anybody-
someone to even translate like an
Yeah.
error message.
But Facebook, when they found out, they did fix it immediately, and they're like, "Oh, it's just a silly little bug," but it caused a lot of apprehension in these people.
Yeah, that'd be scary
Yeah.
if you'd had issues before.
Although, that's why you shouldn't depend on Facebook for your communications. Jesus, what's wrong with these people?
Well, I don't know if they're depending on it so much as it's like, is this just the start of another like chain of events? Like, oh, first it starts with them just not using our language on Facebook, which is whatever. And then, we're being rounded up in the streets,
First, they came for the shit posts, and I said nothing. Well, we talk about, the FTC going after the big tech companies and looking at their past mergers and how they came about those and whether or not that was a little anti-competitive. And this headline seems like it would be really good news, but in that light, perhaps not something that they would like right now.
WhatsApp hits 2 billion users, up from 1.5 billion 2 years ago. This is the same app that Bezos was hacked with, so woohoo!
It's the most popular chat app in the world.
Uh,
And Facebook owns it.
Weirdly popular overseas.
Oh, I should have included the article on Signal. Signal just got a whole bunch of funding thanks to a very wealthy benefactor, and it's going to be awesome and take over the world.
Well, WhatsApp does still give you that end-to-end encryption, as far as we know.
And the Saudi government, apparently.
But one of those ends is Facebook.
End to end to end.
We talk about meme culture and how powerful memes have become. And of course, the Trump presidency is the greatest example of that. But can a meme be monetized? That's a big question. Remember we had the big scare where they were going to go after all the Disney
Oh, yeah.
IPs?
They kind of did.
And people were like, oh, God, can we not make Disney memes anymore?
A lot of Baby Yoda stuff got taken down.
I remember that.
As we're going in, or we're diving headlong into this election year, we must ask, how can memes be used politically? And the Zuckerberg has weighed in.
Facebook says political candidates can use paid memes. Does that include the screenshots of like Bloomberg tweeting at somebody, like how much to tweet that you support my Bloomberg?
Bloomberg's already paying people.
Yeah, well, no, this was in response to the
Yeah.
influencers he was buying.
Wow.
So it's not an ad that you pay Facebook for, but you might pay someone for it. And they might not tell you that they paid for it.
Stacy took an ad. Did an ad for...
She loves Bloomberg.
Yeah. She's
saw-
over there. We don't have her on... We need to put her back on the camera.
Yeah, we got to like rearrange and throw some stuff away.
Yeah.
I saw a great meme. It was Mayor Pete standing next to a whiteboard, and the whiteboard said, "What if we were to rage on behalf of the machine?" Which sums him up pretty well, doesn't it?
Here's an engagement challenge for everyone. What was the first meme that you remember seeing?
Oh, no, I don't know.
I remember
It's
mine.
tough.
It was an advice animal, and it was a frog with his little toe pads together like this. And it said excellent in the meme font underneath it. I saw it at a local comic book shop, and I was like, wow, that's funny. I hope they make more images like that.
Wait a minute. You saw your first meme out in the wild, not online?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
and then
unique.
they were like, we printed this from a website called I Can Has Cheeseburger. And I went to I Can Has Cheeseburger, and I laughed at all the other memes.
Your world was changed forever.
Yeah.
I think probably the first meme that I ever saw was some cat meme, probably.
Yeah. Like the first time I became aware of what memes were, and like the meme culture was like the rage faces.
Yeah.
Those were big. Well, Twitter has, they were really kind of capricious about what they'll let you buy ads for and what they'll silence and what they won't. And a lot of people complain. It's like, hey, you're politicizing this. You won't let me say this, but you'll let this other person say this. And this is perhaps a good example that they definitely pick and choose what they censor.
Twitter ran ads for human organs because, hey, money's money.
$20.
You dig into this, there's a little bit more to the story there, but yeah. So,
Organ market. Fresh, organic.
So yeah, they're just saying, hey, you want a kidney? Contact us and get a kidney. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but apparently that's a thing.
There's some like weird sexual energy to that photo. Come hither and take my kidney. It's very strange.
Well, these guys got the scars, so these guys don't have an extra kidney anymore.
Well, yeah, here, show the chat, and they can decide.
I guess they had to buy iPhones.
Or money or food for their family.
They also show
Whatever.
this. So this is what we're talking about. In terms of like, he marks it with hashtag ad, but this is Dale Jr. talking about Nicorette lozenges.
Yeah.
Do you think he got at Dale Jr. in the early days of Twitter? Or did he have to buy that?
I don't know.
He's probably such a brand. He probably had a marketing team doing that, right?
Yeah.
So, as we go into the election, just be careful what you consume in terms of memes and information, because it's all for sale and it's all there to manipulate you.
Can't
it.
wait till it's over.
That's all we got for today.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Woohoo!
Bye.